We are discussing nuclear physics, and in the last session, we have arrived up to understanding of the binding energy and representation of binding energy curve and its implications. In that, we have seen the definitions of isobars, isotones, and isotopes. Now, we shall try to understand something related to nuclear forces in this session. Now, the nuclear forces are very strong forces as compared to gravitation or electromagnetic forces because the binding energy per nucleon is quite high. Besides these forces are very much unique in nature. And let us see why they are unique in nature. Now, nuclear forces are always attractive in nature, except when the nucleons come very close. This is true because as a result of positive binding energy for all nuclei, if the binding energy is negative, then the nuclei would not be stable and the repulsive forces would be existing in the nucleus. Therefore, the nuclear forces are very strong in nature. Similarly, nuclear forces become repulsive in nature very short distances. That is, shorter than 1 Fermi. This fact is supported by the fact that nucleus has a finite size. If at shorter distances the nuclear forces are not repulsive, then the nucleus will reduce to a point mass. Now we can observe the variation of nuclear force between two nucleons with respect to distance between them. When we plot a graph, we will observe that process. Alpha particle structure has a peculiar stability. That is, a state with, let us say, jet protons and jet neutrons in a stable system. In this case, the spin of the nucleus is 0 because two protons align with opposite spins and similarly two neutrons also align with opposite spins, which may show that nuclear forces between two nucleons depend on their relative nuclear spin. Similarly, binding energy of a nucleus is proportional to the mass number. B is proportional to A, or you can say B by A is constant. It shows that a nucleon in a nucleus does not interact with all the nucleons present in the nucleus. Suppose if the nucleon interacts with all its neighboring particles, then the binding energy can be calculated like this. A into A minus 1 by 2. If A equal to 4, then B will be approximately 4.3 by 2, approximately 6. This is 4 into 3 by 2. Now, but if A would be very large, then B is proportional to not A, B is proportional to A square, which is not experimentally found. This predicts that the nucleons interact with only a limited number of adjacent nucleons, which shows that nuclear forces are short-range forces. This is also true of the forces in the formation of molecules from atoms which are electromagnetic in nature. So therefore, nuclear forces do not come into play here. Nuclear forces are charge-independent forces. It is verified by the neutron-neutron or proton-proton scattering experiment that the forces between neutron-proton, proton-neutron, neutron-neutron or proton-proton are exactly same at short distances in the Fermi order. Nuclear forces are saturated forces. That is, they do not vary inside the nucleus and vanish as we move out of the nucleus, or they interact only in a very small region around the nucleon. And then nuclear forces are not completely central, but it depends upon the orientation of the spin of the nucleons. relative to the line joining the center of the nucleus. Right? So when we say nuclear forces are not completely central, but depends on orientation of the spin of nucleons relative to the line joining the center of the nucleus. There are approximately 274 naturally occurring isotope examples we can take where the combination of atomic number and number of neutrons Z and N can be even, odd, or odd, even, or even, odd. So based on the data, the even nuclei are more stable and are found abundant in nature, whereas odd nuclei are unstable and therefore only 4 in nature. Odd even or even odd nuclei having almost same stability because their number is 50 or 55 respectively. So this type of study help us to understand that nuclear forces are charge independent forces. And the nuclear potential that defines the nuclear forces is given by the equation which was known as Yukawa equation. This is nothing but nuclear potential that defines the nuclear forces. E of R equal to minus E naught R naught e power minus R by R naught by R, where this E naught and R naught are two empirical constants. The constant R naught gives the range of nuclear force and E naught determines the strength of nuclear interaction. So the decreasing factor here, e power minus R by R naught, drops when the potential, what we call as Yukawa potential, to 0, faster than Coulomb's potential, which varies 1 by R. So this is expression for nuclear potential that defines the nuclear forces given by Yukawa, otherwise called Yukawa expression. Now with this background, we shall try to understand an interesting feature what is known as magic numbers. We are well aware that when you look at atom as a shell in which the complete filling of orbits of elements becomes most stable, it was thought that such orbits or shells must also exist in the nucleus also. So therefore the binding energies for the nuclear atomic values, that is Z values, show sudden increase at Z equal to 2, 10, 18, 36, 54 and so on. So these atomic numbers corresponding to the noble elements that are chemically most stable. Similar to this, it was observed by two scientists, Mager and Janssen, that the nuclei with proton number Z to be 2, 8 or 20, 28 or 50 or 82, etc. The neutron numbers n equal to 2, 8, 20, 28, 50, 82, 126, etc. etc. They show remarkable stability. So these numbers which are 2, 8, 20, 28, 50, 82, 126, these are called magic numbers. Because if we plot a graph of atomic number Z and number of neutrons n, the number of stable isotopes, then we get a graph. And the graph curve show that there exists something special with these numbers and therefore these numbers are called magic numbers. So now let us understand the plot of or graph of Z versus N and see the concept of number of stable isotopes and try to interpret from the graph. So this is the schematic representation of nuclear binding energy versus atomic number. So atomic number is taken Z and X axis and binding energy on Y axis. So this particular graph helps us to predict the presence of magic number. The existing of magic numbers helped us to predict certain factors. Let us interpret the graph. So if you take the graph, a nucleus having atomic number Z equal to the one of the magic numbers, they are more stable isotopes than its neighbors. For example, if you take calcium, calcium 2040 has 6 stable isotopes. Because it's Z equal to 20, it's a magic number. Potassium 19 has 3 stable isotopes. Similarly, scandium 21 has got 1 stable isotope. Strontium 50 has 10 stable isotopes, where indium 49 has got 2 stable isotopes. Strontium 51 has 2 stable isotopes. Lead 82 will has got 4 stable isotopes. Tin 81 has got 2 stable isotopes. Similarly, bismuth 83 has 2 stable isotopes. So therefore, nucleus having atomic number Z equal to one of the magic numbers, they are found to be more stable isotopes than their neighbors. Similarly, a nucleus which has its neutron number as one of the magic numbers, that if n is one of the magic numbers, what are the magic numbers I talked earlier? The numbers like 2, 8, 20, 28, 50, 82, 126, these are all magic numbers. Because there is something special in that. That's why we are calling them as magic numbers. Now, if you take a nucleus which has its neutron number as one of the magic numbers, then it has got many more stable isotopes than its neighbors. For example, if you take nitrogen 20, it has got 5 isotopes, isotones. N19, there exists one isotone. N21, there exists one isotone. That is the number of neutrons. For n equal to 50, there exists 6 stable isotones. N equal to 51, there exists one stable isotone. For n equal to 49, there exists one stable isotone. That means a nucleus having its neutron number as one of the magic numbers, it has many more stable isotones than its neighbors. Similarly, from the abundance of natural isotopes, the existence of these magic numbers is confirmed. For example, if you take oxygen 816, it occurs almost 99.8% in nature, and its atomic number and number of neutrons both are magic numbers. 8 and 16 both are magic numbers. No? Similarly, stellium 8850, barium 132, they are almost 82.6%. Similarly, you take cesium 14082, both are magic numbers. It exists about 88.5%. That means these are natural isotopes which are abundantly available. So therefore, magic numbers presence is confirmed through this. Similarly, if you take the decay products of all radioactive series, decay end up to the lead concept. For example, Pb, whose atomic number is 82, the magic number is 20882. So n equal to 126, number of neutron equal to 126, which is also a magic number. That means if n and z, that is the number of neutrons and atomic number, both are magic numbers of the nucleus, then the nucleus is said to be doubly magic. Doubly magic nuclei you can take. For example, helium-24 is a doubly magic nuclei. Similarly, you take oxygen-816, it's a doubly magic nuclei. Similarly, calcium-4820, doubly magic. Lead-8229, doubly magic. That means when both n and z, that is the number of neutrons and atomic number, both are magic numbers of the nucleus, then the nucleus is said to be doubly magic. For example, if you take calcium, now calcium provides a good example of being exceptionally stable because it possesses doubly magic nuclei. The existence of several stable isotopes of calcium corresponding to Z equal to 20, which is also a magic number, it can be understood. For example, if you take the highlight isotopes of calcium, they have equal neutrons, 20 and 28, which are also magic numbers. So compared to the binding energy calculated from the Weizsäcker formula, they both have more than accepted binding energy. Similarly, when you look at the study of neutron capturing ability of various nuclei, then we find that calcium 2040 and lead 82-208, etc., they have very low neutron absorption cross section. Whereas if you take xenon 135, 54, 81 or vanadium 5027, they have very high neutron absorption cross section, because by absorption of one neutron, their number of neutrons n value can become a magic number. And here we have to understand there are only limited number of isotopes that emit neutrons spontaneously, like oxygen or krypton or xenon, because they can have number of neutrons number n value equal to magic number because of the loss of one neutron. Similarly, krypton can have its n equal to magic number by the loss of 3 electrons. So therefore it is predicted that the nuclei having their atomic number z value and the number of neutrons n value as magic numbers, it should be spherical in shape, or they should have zero quadrupole movement or the nuclei, the shells of which are completely filled, should be spherical in shape. Largest quadrupole movement you can find. Therefore, it's not, for example, Lu-105, 71, it has the largest quadrupole movement and therefore it's not spherical in shape. While working with the magic numbers, it was Mager and Jensen, when they tried to frame the energy level diagrams of the nucleus, they made certain assumptions while forming the energy levels of a nucleus to corresponding with the magic numbers. They made assumptions like each nucleon in a nucleus moves in the average field of other nucleons. And in addition to this average field, there is a strong coupling between spin and orbit, which is similar to LS coupling for atomic electrons. And J value is given as L plus or minus N. That is J equal to L plus S lies lower than J equal to L minus L. It is assumed that the forces are responsible for the coupling are not of electromagnetic in nature. Such type of assumptions were made by Mager and Jensen while drawing the energy level scheme. So let us understand various models of the nucleus. One of them is what is known as shell model. Now in atomic physics, the shell model has proved successful in providing an explanation for the details of atomic structure. Atomic shells are filled with electrons in order of increasing energy, subject to Pauli's exclusion principle. So as a result of the success of the atomic shell model, this model has been extended to the realm of nuclei. The shell model, which is also known as independent particle model, treats nucleons individually as opposed to treating the nucleus as a whole. The long-range repulsive Coulomb force and the short-range strong attractive nuclear force, interactions between the nucleons are replaced by an average force. The shell model describes the nucleons in terms of groups of shells with the position and energy of a nucleon dependent upon its quantum numbers. But however, there are several principles that are needed reworking when compared with atomic structure. In atomic structure, the potential is provided by the Coulomb field of nucleus, whereas in the nuclear case, the motion of a single nucleon is governed by an average potential generated by all the other nucleons. If two nucleons collide, the energy required to excite one of them to a higher level is more than the nucleons are likely to transfer. Therefore, in the case of a nuclei, it is assumed that there are no nucleon-nucleon collisions and each nucleon moves in unperturbed single particle shell within the nucleus. So therefore, here we have to bring a concept of Hamiltonian equation from classical mechanics. So using Hamiltonian here, the shell model of Hamiltonian can be expressed like this equation. Don't worry about the derivative part of that, because if you want to know the Hamiltonian, you need to understand the classical mechanics or Newtonian mechanics. So therefore, the shell model Hamiltonian is represented as something like this. Now here, total energy is nothing but potential energy and kinetic energy. Here the first term represents the kinetic energy of the individual nucleons and the second term represents the potential energy. So in order to determine the end-free potential, the differences between the nucleus at the center and those at the surface must be taken into account. Nucleons at the center of the nucleus experience nuclear forces uniformly, whereas those at the surface experience a large force towards the center. So therefore, the shell model of the nucleus presumes that a given nucleon moves in an effective attractive potential formed by all the other nucleons. If that is true, then the potential is probably proportional to the nuclear density, and therefore it can be expressed in this form. This is only probability. So according to shell model, the motion of each nucleon is governed by the average attractive force of all the other nucleons. The resulting orbits from the shells, which are similar to the orbits of electrons in the atoms. Because the nucleons are added to the nucleus, they drop into the lowest energy shells according to the Pauli's exclusion principle, which states that each nucleon has a unique set of quantum numbers to describe its motion. For example, when a shell is complete, that is, when the nucleons have used up all the possible sets of quantum numbers, a nucleus of unusual stability is formed. Now, this concept is similar to the one you find in an atom, where a complete set of electron quantum numbers result in an atom with unusual stability, like an inert gas. When all the protons or neutrons in a nucleus are filled in shells, the number of protons or neutrons is called a magic number. As we have already seen some of the magic numbers as 2, 8, 20, 50, 82 and 126 example, etc. etc. For example, if you take strontium 116, it has a magic number of protons 50, and iron 54, it has a magic number of neutrons 28. Some nuclei, if you take for example calcium 40 and lead 208, they have magic numbers of both protons and neutrons. These nuclei have got exceptional stability and therefore they are called doubly magic. Filled shells have a total of angular momentum J, which is equal to 0. The next added nucleon, that means a valence nucleon, determines the angular momentum value of the new ground state. When nucleons, singular in pace, when they are excited, they change the angular momentum of the nucleus as well as its parity and spin projection quantum numbers. The shell model describes how much energy is required to move the electrons from one shell to another and how the quantum numbers change. For example, if you see the schematic representation here, this is the energy diagram of protons and neutrons in carbon 12-6. Now closely observe this. It shows energy diagram of two complete shells of the ground state of carbon 12. Promotion of a nucleon or a pair of nucleons to an unfilled shell puts the nucleus into one of the excited states. Excited nuclear states, for example, decay to more stable states, that is, more stable nucleon shell. So, measuring transition rates between nuclear energy levels require specialized alpha, beta and gamma detectors and associated electronic circuitry to determine the energy and half-life of the decay. That is, promotion of a nucleon or a pair of nucleons into an unfilled shell put the nucleus into one of the excited states. These excited nuclear states or states decay to more stable states, that is, more stable nucleon shell. So, measuring the transition rates between the nuclear energy levels naturally requires some specialized alpha, beta, gamma detectors and also associated electronic circuitry in order to determine the energy and also half-life of the decay. Now, this is carried out by quantum mechanics and shell model theory. Both permit the nuclear scientists to compute the transition probability. Transition probability is nothing but rate of decay between the nuclear states. For nuclei whose structure can be described by a small number of valence nucleons outside the filled shells, the shell model calculations generally agree very well with the measured values of spin and parity assignments and transition probabilities. So if you summarize this session, in this session we tried to understand some features of nuclear forces found to be very strong forces compared to gravitational as well as electromagnetic forces. And we also understood that nuclear forces are always attractive in nature. And these nuclear forces become repulsive when there is a short distance. And also we understood that when we are studying about nuclear forces, the alpha particle structure has got a peculiar stability. And also we tried to understand from nuclear forces that binding energy of a nucleus is proportional to the mass number. And also we have seen nuclear forces are charge independent forces. And we have seen that nuclear forces are saturated forces. Nuclear forces are not completely central. From that background, we tried to arrive at energy equation, that is using two empirical constants. How do we get nuclear potential that defines the nuclear forces in the form of Yukawa equation or Yukawa expression? Then tried to understand something called magic numbers, and with that magic numbers we tried to predict from the curve of nuclear binding energy versus atomic number, the existence of magic numbers were found, where a nucleus having atomic number equal to one of the magic numbers, they are found to be more stable isotope than their neighbors. And also from the curve we try to understand that nucleus, when its neutron number as one of the magic number, it has got many more stable isotopes than its neighbors. And also from abundance of natural isotopes, the existence of magic numbers is confirmed. And the decay products of all radioactive decay series up to the lead is also a magic number. And from the study of neutron capturing ability of various nuclei, we found certain very low neutron absorption cross section and as well as very high neutron absorption cross section because of additional absorption of a neutron. And also predicted from that nuclei having Z value and N value as magic numbers should be spherical in shape. From there we tried to analyze the energy level scheme proposed by Mager and Jensen with their assumptions. And then we tried to understand the theoretical concept of nucleus model, in which one of them, shell model, we tried to understand, according to which the motion of each nucleon is governed by the average attractive force of all other nucleons. The resulting orbits from shells which are similar to the orbits of electrons in atoms. This is what basically shell model of nucleus helps us, wherein we try to, and while understanding the theory, we try to look at the Hamiltonian equation represented for shell model. This is what we have seen in this session. In the next session, we shall look at yet another model of nucleus known as liquid dropper model and followed by Fermi gas model later in the coming sessions.